Welcome to Fancounters. I'm Nick.
And I'm Elizabeth.
Some people call Christmas the most wonderful time of the year, but I think today, for a lot of people, is the most wonderful time of the year because it's
Black Friday.
So we hope that you are finding a lot of deals out there and letting us keep you company as you navigate through store after store of deal after deal.
I don't know. There were so many flyers. I couldn't keep them straight. I have no idea what store has anything on sale.
Did you go through the ads already?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I did some of them online prior to and then made lists. But I like to physically have them in my hand so I can circle and then look at it and go, oh, that was at Target or, oh, that was at Walmart. Mm-hmm. But lots of times they don't give them to you early, so you have to wait till they came out in last night's paper.
Interesting. Yeah, it's hard to wait for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, on Wednesday night, I went and saw School of Rock.
Oh.
That was amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, they're not going to be on our show.
Yeah, we were hoping they would.
I know. I had the request in. And with the holiday schedule and I guess they still, even though they're performing on tour, they're still rehearsing.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, they rehearse in between shows and stuff. So with all of that, they said politely, sorry, we can't accommodate you. So that was kind of disappointing.
That was a bummer.
Because the lead in that show is from Chicago. So I thought, with us being here in Milwaukee, I thought, hey, we'd have a lot to talk about. Midwest guy goes to big time.
All right.
But anyway, it was excellent. Tonight we're going to go see Annie.
Yay!
I'm pretty excited about that. And then just a weekend of putting up holiday decorations.
Yeah, well, I'm done.
Yeah, that must feel good.
Well, as you know, my family, my husband takes my kids away for Thanksgiving. That's my Thanksgiving gift. And so on Wednesday, before they left on the previous Sunday, my husband put up the tree. And then Wednesday, I put all the ornaments on and got everything done. And by Thursday morning, I had put up all of the Christmas decorations.
See, and I was thinking about that after you told me you were going to do that last time. And don't you feel like you're taking something away from your kids, not decorating the tree with them?
No, because most of the time the kids, and we do let them put some on, and both of them asked way back the previous Sunday if they could put the angel on.
Oh.
And so we let them dig through the boxes and find the angel, but the tree wasn't even fluffed or anything. It still was just like a big stick with lots of green stuff on it, but they were just so excited to put the angel on. But for them, I'm not sure that they really care about putting the ornaments on. They care about looking at the ornaments that they've gotten each year and remembering where they get one. They get one each year from St. Nick that has something to do with how they did their year, like what happened in their year, so that their ornaments always reflect something for that entire year.
That's cool. We do the same thing when we go on a vacation. We get an ornament from wherever we visited that says the city and that kind of thing.
And then today when we're done, I'm going to go home and wrap all the presents because I'm already done Christmas shopping.
Dang. That's crazy. All right. Well, so let's get through this one so that you can get home.
Yeah, I got wrapping to do, man.
People don't want to hear us talk. They want to hear our wonderful guests. And this week we've got something special for you because this guy's been a friend of mine now going on 7 years. He's music producer, film composer, Brandon Jarrett. Now, we talked about Brandon in our second week of the podcast. Film director Mike Pfeiffer has him scoring many of his movies. And this week, we're going to get to learn about the man composing those films for Pfeiffer Worldwide. Brandon lives in Los Angeles, but he grew up in Queens, New York. He learned the music industry from a very early age as he had already traveled the whole globe by age 11.
I know, I saw that. That's outstanding.
Yeah, you're trying to teach tour your kids around the United States by
I'm trying to make it through the United States, but we're never going to make it through the world.
No.
You might know Brandon from the music he created for several television movies, including Christmas with the Andersons, The Bachelor Next Door, Born and Missing, 16 and Missing, and Deadly Daycare.
If you go to his website, BrandonJarrettMusic.com, you can hear some musical samples of his numerous scores that he has created. He also appeared in a 2002 episode of Will and Grace. So, of course, with that show having come back this year, we're going to have to ask him about that experience.
I know, I love that show.
Do you? Do you watch the reboot?
Oh, I do, yes. It's actually on my DVR. I tape it every week.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have not caught
Yeah, it's just as funny as it was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to Roseanne as a reboot next year.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that's coming back to ABC. It's going to be awesome.
Huh.
Can't wait. 2018 Roseanne. But anyway, let's stick with the Black Friday guest. Brandon Jarrett, you're up next.
Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is Fancounters, the podcast.
You're amazing. You need to come to Hollywood. I'm going to make you famous.
There was this mob of people, and they're screaming my name.
Crazy fans.
Stop following me. Don't come around my house. If you do, the cops are going to be at yours.
I think this guy wants to fight me. Ended up being a fan.
There's just like security guards with like M16
Holding like fans back.
Are you kidding me?
I continually will get stopped.
Can I take a picture? We're gonna. Oh my God.
I definitely declined signing body parts.
Oh, I don't want to go there.
I'm the only one that's ever spit on Sam Jackson and lived to tell about it.
That's why we call it Fancounters.
I don't think you're going to last on the air very long.
So, Brandon, it is great to have you on Fancounters. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Nick. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me on your show.
No problem. Now, we talked about this just before we went on the air. Doing research for the show does feel like I'm a private detective. So while I thought I knew a lot about you, I learned a lot more when I was researching you. So my question is that I have to start with is, have you ever Googled yourself?
Well, you know, I mean, obviously you did Google me.
Several times.
You pulled out information that I didn't even know was out there. But you know, I don't know that I've Googled myself recently. I mean, maybe a long time ago when Google, like, you know, when it was first getting popular. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, the things you'll learn, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we are excited. We gave a little description of some of the projects that you've been working on in our opening, and we're going to get to some of those, but we always find it the easiest to start kind of at everybody's beginning because how you got there is almost as interesting as what you're doing now. So a lot of people spend their whole entire life looking for their purpose in life, or at least a lot of people struggle to find their place in the world. But for you, you were actually born into a musical family. So I'm thinking that must have inspired you to follow in those passed down roots.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I did grow up. My parents were both entertainers. They're both singers, and they were an act. They were an act that was similar to like Captain and Tennille, Peaches and Herb. Back in that day, back in the the 60s and the 70s.
I was going to say, you're not saying names that I know of.
Those are people I know of. Be careful.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. How about Sonny and Cher?
Because that's who I was thinking about when you started saying that.
Okay, now I'm with you.
Yeah. That's back in the day when, like, on television they had musical artists on television, and they were either guests or they had their own shows.
Okay.
But anyway, and the acts back then, they were, it was more than just singing. It was an act. That's what they called them, acts. And that's what my parents were. There was a lot of dialogue and banter in between the songs that kind of told stories and made the show a show. So anyway, we grew up on the road with them, in that environment because my mom was born in New York, my dad was born in Jamaica, and then he migrated to New York with my grandfather it would have been in the 60s.
Okay.
And then they met in college, and that's when they started their band together, their group. Well, I mean, at that time, again, that was like, at that time, the coffee shop groups in New York were like the singer-songwriters that we know today.
Okay.
And they started that act, and then they got their break by opening for Rodney Dangerfield had a pop. Well, there's still a club there called Dangerfields, and they got their start there by being an opening act there for him.
For the man himself.
And yeah, for the man himself.
Wow.
And then for other comedians that were that came into there too, because Dangerfields was a club, and and it was a club it was a stand-up comedy club, and so everybody from at that day it was like Flip Wilson and David Fry. And they had the acts of that day were there, and then my parents actually wound up going on tour and opening for them for a period of time, and so my brother and I, well, my brother wasn't born. You know, he's 2 years younger than I am. So my first year I spent in Paris after I was born.
Were you born in Paris? Or where were you born?
No, I was born here.
Okay.
I was born here, but then almost right after I was born, they had their first. They had one of their first jobs was at a place in Paris, and they performed there for a year, a little over a year, I think. And then right before my brother was born, they came back because they wanted him to be born here in the U.S. So yeah, and then then from there on, they came back to New York and they stayed here for a little bit, but then they because they had that little bit of success there with opening for the comedians, that the agents were able to get them bookings, and they started sending them out to other states, and before you know it, they were traveling the whole country. And by the time I was 10 years old, I had been to every state in the United States more than once.
Wow.
And
nice.
And we had been to, obviously been to Europe, been to France, England, and we'd been to South America and Canada and Mexico. Some people go, "Wow, that must have been a hard life," or whatever. And my memories are nothing but amazing. And it was the greatest adventure.
How did you do school traveling around the world like that?
It was we were tutored. It was homeschooled.
Okay.
We were homeschooled. There was at that time. I mean, homeschooling wasn't as popular then as it is now. Now it seems like everybody gets homeschooled. But then there was a school called Calvert in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was one of the few homeschooling programs around. So it was basically my mom who had I think she had a minor in education. She taught us.
Okay. Wow.
And then because that's the way homeschooling worked back then.
Yeah.
And then you send your tests and you report back. But it was a fantastic program. I mean, by the time we actually came back to when we went to regular school and we went to public school when we stopped traveling in Las Vegas, when we finished, we were a year ahead of everybody else in our age group.
Wow.
Just because that's the way the program worked. It didn't go off the same calendar year.
Right.
And it was just but again, it was a great experience. And of course we were inspired by our parents because we were around music all the time, and we started learning instruments when we were young. My brother started playing the guitar when he was about he started when he was about 6, and then I started playing the flute. And we would set up while my parents were performing. We would set up, we would usually wait in like a dressing room in the back.
Uh-huh.
And the dressing room is like in the back of the stage, and behind the stage is like also, because a lot of the venues that they played at that time were like dinner theaters.
Okay.
So there's also a kitchen, there like off to the side there would be a kitchen, down the hallway, and there's hallways back there for all the employees to walk around and do all their work. And we would set up chairs and little stages in the back while they were performing, and we would put on our own little show.
That's awesome.
And so some of them would come back, and they'd have like 2 or 3 employees that were just sitting there watching us play.
Nice. So you learned to play also the drums and the piano, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you were working on your vocals as a kid. At what point did your family move to Las Vegas?
When I was 12. I was 12 years old.
Okay.
I was 12 when we landed in Vegas.
And what was that part of the family business, or did they decide that they were going to put roots down and just play in Vegas?
Well, that was the last place that they played. They played at the Hilton in Vegas, in the showroom there.
Okay.
And so then they figured, they were like, well, we're here in Vegas. We could probably stay. And my dad had actually decided that he was gonna stop performing, and he was gonna become an agent, and then my booking agent, and then my mom was gonna continue to perform, and he was gonna book her.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that's what they did for a little while, for a few years, and that worked for a little bit, and then she just decided to stop too, and then she kind of went into regular. She used her degree and got back into marketing.
Wow, that's got to be interesting, going from in front of an audience to kind of and having a real job. You know, we talked about that last week with a guest that, you know, went on a worldwide tour and as a photographer, and then all of a sudden he's got to come back and work at Starbucks. It's like, you know, that's a very difficult transition to make. How difficult was it for your mom to be playing in front of audiences for years and then change that and totally be out of the entertainment business like that?
Yeah, you know, I always wondered about that too. I think that I think she was kind of at peace with the transition, because it wasn't something that she did because she couldn't do it anymore and because it wasn't working. I mean, she was working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think she just kind of said, okay, I think I've had my fill of this, and I'm going to change. Which seems odd to me because I can't imagine doing that myself.
Because this is what I'm doing and I like it.
Yeah. But it works for her. My dad, I mean, he still stayed in the business. He was an agent, so he was on the other end. You know, he was booking groups all the time, and he became like there were about 3 agents that were, if you were going to work in Las Vegas, you went to those 3 people, and he was one of those. So he did very well.
So Brandon, when I was a teenager, I got my start in radio. I was a 15-year-old, and I got hired to run the board and ended up on the air and that kind of thing. But as a teenager, for you, there was a place called Face Production Studios in Las Vegas where you got a job. So I'm just kind of wondering, as a teenager, what were you doing there? You know, what kind of job did you have?
Oh, well, okay. So Face Productions is, you did do all your research well, because this all segues nicely into that. So my dad was an agent at that time. So one of his acts that he was booking was a guy by the name of David Adams, and he was a new young group that came in town, and he was a very super talented guy who sang and played and wrote and he recorded, and he was really one of those people that was sort of one of the pioneers in recording, because he used technology like as it was available. You know, he was one of the people that, like, you know, some people exactly. Some people stay with what's, they stay with the 24-inch tape. They stay with what the protocol is, and then some people push and they go with, let's go with the newest technology and try to make it, and make things more streamlined. So anyway, David Adams was a performer, entertainer that my dad was booking, and they developed relationships, and he was always over at the office, and then I met him there, and at that time I was in high school. I was playing football, and I was 15 years old. I was huge. I was like 220 pounds, and I was like all muscle because I was into powerlifting and bodybuilding. The reason why I'm saying that is because it probably looks funny. And he always tells me the story of how when he first saw me come in and my dad introduced him to his son, and he was like, oh my gosh, it was like this little wall walked at me. And my neck was just, like a typical football player. And, which again is hilarious to me now because I don't look anything like that now. But
I never found any old pictures of you from that time, so don't worry, they're not out there.
Oh, exactly.
I would have found them.
Good. So then David Adams, he and I just hit it off, and we kind of became friends, and then he had built a studio at his house there. And he invited me over to come see it, and he was working on music, and he was on his whole mission was to perform here while he's making a living, record, and then go back and forth to LA and try to make some headway there with his original recordings. And so he brought me over to his house, and he showed me his setup and I won't describe all the equipment because unless you're like a producer, is probably like talking Greek if I described all the stuff to you. But basically, it's like, it was the new technology.
Okay.
It was the new technology using basically like computerized equipment to run everything. Mm-hmm. And when he showed me all the tracks and everything that he'd been working on, and then he pushed that button, and it like and it played everything. So, and he had played everything on the track. He played everything from the drums to the keyboard parts to the synth parts to the horn parts to the vocals and he pushed one button and it started everything. And the whole song played like a band was playing in the place.
Awesome.
And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that is awesome.
Wow.
And from that moment on, that's when I knew that that's what I'm going to do. Like, I knew I was going to perform, but I knew that producing and composing, that's what I'm going to do for my life.
And you did perform. You were in a pop group with your brother called My Brother and Me.
Yeah.
So were you the brother or were you the me? Or was this a fight you guys had?
That's so funny. It just depends on who you were talking to.
Oh, okay. Well, because one's the headliner, but I don't know. No, so what was that like? You guys were touring a lot. I mean, you were working 6 nights a week, 45 weeks a year for like 3 years. So your dad being a booking agent had to have helped?
It did. It was, I mean, that the fact that we got the opportunity to do that much performing, to perform, in that short period of time, I look back at it and I think that's just that was such an invaluable tool for us. Because again, it's 4-hour shows a night, 6 nights a week, and it was actually a little longer than 3 years is when we were going at that pace. And then after that, we kind of weaned it back to about 30 weeks a year for the next 2 or 3 years. Okay. Because we were coming out here to Los Angeles at that time. And then we'd kind of set up our home base here. So in order to have time to record and do all the things that we were doing here, we couldn't perform, obviously every single day of the year. But yeah, I mean, it was just, sometimes those road trips, I mean, besides being a lot of fun, and we had sort of like a little family, and we had of musicians that traveled with us, and we had a 7-piece band with 3 dancers, sometimes 4 dancers, a light technician, a sound technician, and it was like a caravan. We were like gypsies. We would perform at one place. We would go to Utah and we would perform there and perform there for 2 weeks, and then the next booking would be in Arizona, and we'd go to Phoenix, and sometimes we'd have to close on a Sunday night, and then we'd have to open up there on a Tuesday night, but we'd have to drive, like 13 hours. So everybody would have to be ready. Everything would have to be packed, ready to go. And we would actually just finish, pack up the rest of the equipment, and then leave that night, and then just drive straight through, and and then arrive at the next destination and get set up and perform again. And
what kind of venues were these?
Most of them were like dance clubs.
Okay.
Some of them were, the ones I'm talking about now were like dance clubs, and then we also did Vegas, which was our home base, which was when you're in Vegas, you're doing like the small showrooms or the lounges.
Okay.
There, at that time, and I mean at that time too, it was there were a lot of acts. Like now in Vegas, there are really no live acts anymore. No live bands really playing anywhere anymore. Okay. There's a few, but before it was like, I mean, every single hotel had a live band.
Now, are you guys staying in hotels along this way, or where are you sleeping in cars? How are you getting? I mean, you're caravanning, but what are you doing every night? Are you sleeping in a hotel?
Oh yeah. The hotels were provided for us. We always had hotel rooms, and we had all the accommodations. I mean, some of the places were smaller than others, so some of them were questionable. but then you'd stay at some hotels that were really nice, and it was like, it was kind of like you were treated like a star.
Well, what do you remember as the worst part of that tour?
Probably the worst part of touring was driving in the middle of nowhere and breaking down.
Oh,
and having, your car,
I knew that was going to come.
Oh.
Yeah, that's probably the worst part. And we had cell phones, but it wasn't like it is. It wasn't like it is now. I mean, you could be stuck out there for a while. So, but we were always really fortunate. We got rescued a few times.
And what do you think was the best part of touring?
Well, the best part of it was that we had a group of people that, Danny Falcone, who was our music director, he was our trumpet player, and then we had just an ensemble of guys and girls that we loved. It was like family. So you have this camaraderie, and you're, and it's hard work. It's hard work, but the thing is, the payoff is every night when you go and you perform, and and you get on stage and people jump up and they start, dancing, and they start having fun, and the party starts. Then, that's what made it worth it every single time. It didn't matter how tired we were. It didn't matter, how many hours we'd spent on the road or, at rehearsal. When the drummer counted off the first bar, it was like everything was good.
Nice. You talked about the fans, Brandon. We're always interested in asking our guests like interesting fan encounters and stuff. Did you have some crazy things happen with fans when you were touring?
We were probably we weren't one of the crazy bands, we were but we did. I mean, our experiences with our fans were actually pretty good. I mean, you get some crazy fans. We had a few that were kind of, that sort of stalked you a little bit.
Really? Like you'd get people that follow you on tour, probably?
Well, yeah, you get some people that follow you. That's normal. If they come around, they want to follow you to different locations. I mean, they'll actually travel. We've had fans that would we would be performing. We had fans that had made in Utah, and they would travel to Vegas to come see us.
Wow.
Or they would go to Tahoe. They would show up in Tahoe, and we're and all of us, the whole band. It was almost like you could just see the look on everybody's face because they all know these two girls and this guy.
Yeah. And
you're like, you guys live in Utah. Like, what? And no one says this out loud, but you're like, what are you doing here? But that's just that's what fans do, and we really appreciated that because it was it's their support that keeps you going and helps and it helps keep you motivated because because I was a fan of music.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to go see my favorite bands, when I went to go see Van Halen perform live in concert, I mean, I didn't have the means at that time to go drive and follow them anywhere, but if I did, maybe I would have.
Did you have anything that is, I don't know, what's the most unusual thing that might have happened to you on the road concerning your fans and people that...
So there was one fan from in Vegas who probably could have been in one of the Thriller movies that I score now, and she wound up actually one night. This was just after Heidi and I had met. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, we'd met already. We were working together at that point. She was choreographing for us, and she was actually in the show with us at that time. And we'd left the venue, and we were driving home, and it was on the back right side or something. I just noticed there was this car that was behind us the whole time. And when we got off the freeway, it was still behind us.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I said, I think we're being followed. And then so she was kind of looking around trying to be discreet about it. And we just kept driving through other neighborhoods. I didn't go back to my house because I didn't want her to know where you live.
Yeah.
I was like, that's her for sure. So it kind of wound up being a little bit of a chase scene, and then I had to sort of speed off and kind of do about 80 miles an hour through neighborhood streets to try to
oh my gosh,
to get away from.
You were the Justin Bieber of your time.
Yeah.
Except you didn't get pulled over, so.
Well, but you just mentioned Heidi, and so sometime during your tour you met Heidi, and she was a choreographer. Yeah. Did you hire her? Who hired her to choreograph the show?
Well, my brother and I, we both we hired her to choreograph our show. I mean, we were working at that time with, that was 95, And at that point, we'd been going back and forth recording our first album at Paramount here in Los Angeles. And the producer that we were working with at that time, Heidi was working with him, and she was choreographing a couple of other groups that he was producing. So at that time, we had a choreographer, but things, I can't remember exactly what had happened with her. Oh, I think she choreographed our segment, but then she got another job, and she was working with somebody else. So we needed a new choreographer. Okay. And so he had suggested Heidi, and Heidi came. She drove in, and we were performing there's a little showroom at the Showboat Hotel, which doesn't exist there anymore. And when she walked in, I remember I was on stage. We were on stage, like we were doing the second number. We were doing Michael Jackson song called "Working Day and Night," and I saw her walk in. I didn't know for sure. We didn't know what she looked like, but when she walked in, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's her."
Did she have the big hair back then?
Yeah, she did.
Okay, so because she looks like a choreographer.
Yeah, and I was just like, I when she walked in the door, I was just like. My dad had always told me, he said, one thing, he goes, just don't get involved with people that you're working with.
Uh-oh.
Like, that was kind of that was sort of his motto the whole time. But when she walked in the door, I was like, I just knew it. I was like, all that is out the window. Like, that's not good. I just
Sorry,
felt
Dad.
this weird thing. And my dad, actually, he was the one who was sitting there waiting for her. He knew it, too. When she sat down, he was like, oh, no. He was like...
Nothing good can come from this.
Yeah. But it was one of those rare situations where, they don't always work out when people work together but it was meant to be. So
together, you and her, Heidi, created Moho Productions.
Yeah, after we had actually made a permanent home here, then, she was obviously still choreographing and still touring and doing the dance conventions, and we were still performing but transitioning here. And I was starting to build my a small studio in our apartment that we had, just in one of the rooms there at the time, and I'd gotten a few jobs and was working for a few independent people and then, at a certain point, there was one project where I was working for somebody, and she was choreographing for that artist. And then she brought that artist in, and we met. And then I started doing the music for her. And that was kind of like the first time that, sort of by accident, that she was choreographing for them, and I was producing the music for them. And we said, well, wait a second, what if we actually did this and made it into a business where you could come to us and you could actually get your live performance and your recording. You could get somebody in the same business that could help you with both. And so that was kind of the start of Moho Productions.
What does Moho mean?
I kind of always wish that it was like some really deep meaning. But it basically is, it's basically Heidi's nickname in high school was always Heidi Ho.
Okay.
And my nickname in high school was Mighty Mo.
Oh,
and
I get it.
So we just put the two of them together.
When Brandon and I met, I was doing a movie, The Diary of an Ex-Child Star, and Brandon was very nice to come on and give us some music for the movie, which was awesome. You were producing some artists at that time, Ashley Argota, who was on Nickelodeon's True Jackson VP. You've worked with Disney star Stephanie Scott and a lot of other people. That's just a little history of how we met. I'm really thankful for that. Before the composing started, and we're going to talk about some of the movie composing before, tell us a little bit about getting out of that apartment and building your clientele, and tell us exactly what Moho Productions does even today.
So, Moho Productions basically is the, today what it has become is that's the umbrella for us producing records.
Okay.
That's where an artist. That's where we produce records for an artist. So we were. I mean, like I said, when we started in our apartment, I just I had one room there, one bedroom there, that I used for the studio, and and we would bring artists over and record their songs and help them write them and produce them and put the tracks together and everything. But then, we still had to outsource a lot of stuff because we didn't have enough people yet.
So at one point, you and Mike Pfeiffer had to have met to strike up this friendship. Tell us about how you guys met.
Well, we actually met through his wife, Kea, is an actress, and she's been in tons of movies. And when we first moved here, and we were kind of transitioning, one of the things that I was doing to make money was my dad had suggested, he said, go take some acting classes, go get into like acting and modeling and try to get some work that way. Because it's much easier to get work, like just getting work to live on in acting, in the acting and modeling business than it is in music. Because, in music, it's like feast or famine.
Yeah.
One of the two. There's, especially in Los Angeles. When you're in Los Angeles, I mean, you don't, most places you have to pay in order to play there.
Wow.
So it wasn't like when we were touring and we were actually making a living. So anyway, at that time, I started taking some acting classes. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because the acting class that I actually wound up taking for the longest period of time was taught by two people named Gene and Tony Bua, and Kea was taking class with them too.
Okay.
And
awesome.
And so we met in class, and then Gene and Tony, they were writers. They wrote musicals, and so I was producing. I actually wound up. I started in one of their musicals when I first met them. That's how I met them, because I auditioned for them, and then we built a friendship, and then we got to know each other, and then I started helping them produce the music for their next musical, and then through all of that, Kay got to know me, and I got to know her, and then at one point Michael came to us and said, "Hey guys," he had a Christmas movie called The Dog Who Saved Christmas, and Michael and Kay came to us and said, would you guys like to, we'd like to see if you could write a song for this movie that we're doing. And I think it was one of their first Christmas movies. It was kind of as he was getting out of the genre of, because I think he was doing a lot of horror films.
He was, yep.
Yes.
And then he switched from horror films to Christmas movies.
With animals.
Yes. Yes.
And I mean, the guy's amazing. He could write anything.
Yeah.
So we rewrote that song for that movie, and everybody just really came together well. I mean, it was one of those things too where, sometimes you're working on a bunch of things and you're not really thinking about where it's going to go. And I didn't know Michael at that time really personally. So we did this song, and then the producers and everybody really liked it, and it wound up being on the DVD menu of that movie. And then, it went well. Everybody went to the screening, and we had a great time. And then a few years later, he just out of the blue, it was just like it almost seemed like it was just out of the blue. It was like a couple of years later, he gave me a call, and he was working on a movie called My Dog's Christmas Miracle. And he said, "Hey, you remember me, Mike Pfeiffer?" I was like, "Yes, of course I remember you."
No, I'm sorry. How can I place that name?
Yeah, right. Let me think about that for a minute. And and he said, I've got a new movie coming up with this producer, and I'd like to see if you might be interested in doing the score for the movie. And at that point, I was just like, oh my! It blew me away. And of course, I said, well, let me think about that. Yes, I would love to do the score for one of your movies.
Okay, but when you watch a movie, when you're scoring a movie, you watch the movie for the first time. It's much different than what we see because you're making the music, so it's quiet or, relatively quiet. Tell me what the process is for creating a movie score.
Okay, so I'm sure everybody has a little bit different process, every composer. But like for me, I mean, well, you're right. It is relatively quiet. Sometimes there is temp music used. In most editors use some sort of temp music to temp a scene together. I think just so that they have a tempo and they have an idea of what the feel is like of the scene. But of course, if it's temp music, they're just grabbing pieces of scores that have already been done. So it's not it's not made for the scene. It just gives a general idea of kind of what they're going for. Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it suspenseful? Is it
right?
But process-wise, really for me, it's like my process is I like to watch the movie through all the way first. I like to watch through the whole thing, and the producer's cut, and then then of course I sit down with Michael and we do a spotting session, and we talk about we go through all the scenes. We watch the whole thing again together, and we talk about what needs to be emphasized in different scenes. And I mean, at this point, we've done a lot of these suspense thriller movies together, so we kind of know, we all know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
But still, he'll still give us direction as far as, well, this scene, we want to make sure this opening is really intense, and we just want to emphasize the loss that happens at the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. Or this scene over here, This is supposed to be tender. This is a tender moment. That his baby was just born. Really, come on, let's make that really. We want to feel that. We want to feel that moment. When you see your first child, and so anything from that to this is this scene over here. Sometimes this scene here is this is a chase scene, and the villain is being pursued right now, and then sometimes they'll switch scenes and they'll go to another scene that maybe a detective on a phone talking to somebody else, and he'll give us direction to say, okay, I want to keep it driving all the way through. Sometimes he doesn't want to. Sometimes he'll go, okay, let's let off the gas a little bit here. But for the most part, it's when I get in there, it's he's kind of helped teach me too with these movies that you kind of get inside the actors' heads, and you kind of go. I kind of go from actors' perspective when I'm writing a score for it. It's I try to keep it simple. Try to make it about the scene, make it about the actor, make it about what they're doing, rather than try to make it about the music. If that makes any sense.
Well, that was my next question: is if you've scored over 30 films, how do you keep them different?
Some movies have like a theme. Some have character themes to them that you develop, and some are a little more story driven. So it might have like a story theme. So it's really about coming up with different melodies. To me, it's really which is what I think. I think like the Alan Silvestri and John Williams and those guys. That's what I always admired about them, is that it doesn't, as complex as some of their scores can be, really what makes their score is the melody. Mm-hmm. They always come up with this melody that is identifiable. So for me, that's kind of what it is. It's coming up with a new melody for each movie, and then of course too, it's a sound template too. Sometimes I change. I'm always changing the sound template based on the film.
Have you ever had to go back and be like, oh, did I do that one before?
Well, there's some that are going to have similar groupings of instruments, but I haven't had one where I've like duplicated it. I haven't had one where I played it and then we go, oh, that's the same theme from this movie.
Well, I wonder if that ever happened. It seems like when you're doing so many.
Because it sounded like a good idea in my head, right? Because that's where I liked it.
I got it
from somewhere.
I think maybe when I get to the point of those other guys I was talking about, where they've done like 300.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I might run into that.
And that's the thing. You listen to a lot of John Williams stuff. Nothing sounds the same. So.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear, because you're kind of doing these movies all for one audience. If they're all on like Lifetime and those kinds of channels, I just wondered if they run together. So do you visit the sets of the movies while they're in creation to kind of get a feel of what's going on ahead of time? And does this help?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's it actually does help, a little bit it helps because I get to meet the actors, I get to see them perform live,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it does give me a sense of, I mean, just being there with the crew and the cast, and and Michael and and Jordy, the DP. You get to talk about ideas and you get to kind of see the work happening there. So I do. I think it's beneficial.
And the other thing I was wondering is, you and I talked about this before. I thought it would be interesting to talk about here on Fancounters is the fact that a score can really make a great scene even better. But what you got me thinking about when you said it is that it can also turn good acting to look like bad acting when it isn't.
That's one of those strange things, Nick, that I just kind of discovered again, because like I said, the scoring has only been happening over about the last 7 years or so. And whereas, I've been producing records for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
What, is it really? No, it hasn't been 20 years. Yes, it has. Oh my gosh.
Since the 90s, yeah.
I've been discovering that like sometimes there will be, there's music that's sometimes maybe even just placed in there just as a temporarily, and it actually, or maybe I've played something in there and it just takes the scene in a different direction,
Mm-hmm.
and it tends to make if the music isn't right, even if it doesn't have to be bad music. I always thought that before that, okay, well, if it's bad music, it's going to make it look like bad acting. But it could be good music, but just not the right music. It's not the right intention.
Right.
And it's kind of like not where the actors were coming from. So it makes what they're doing look, it just throws everything off.
Sure.
It throws everything off and almost makes the acting look like it's not good. And then you remove it, and you're like, wait a second, these guys are doing a great performance. This is really good. It's the music that was throwing it all off. And then you get the right, you match up the music with the intention of the scene, and then it works perfectly, and you watch it go from looking like, oh wow, that looks really not like, it just doesn't look very good, to that's a really good scene. Wow. And anyway, that was one of my own self-discoveries that I thought, that's when I realized that, wow, the music really, really makes, it can really hurt the film if it's not done right.
So before we leave the composing topic, thinking about film scoring or music producing for music artists, is there any helpful advice that you have for anybody who might be seeking a career in this field?
Yeah, if you're a composer or a producer,
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion, one of my top list things is be on time. Be on time with everything. Be responsible and be trustworthy. I think those three things, when it comes to music producers and music composers, I think that separates you from 95% of the people that are out there. Because for some reason in our field, there are a lot of us that don't think that, they think that like, they don't realize that it's a business. That this is a business, and when you're hired to compose or produce for somebody, there's a whole team of people that hired you to do this, and they have, I mean, as big as the job is to compose the music for a film, it's only one element of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are a lot of other big tasks that are going on at the same time. There's color correction, there's directing, there's producing, there's writing, there's the acting, the performances. Nick, you've done it.
Yep, been there.
So my job, I feel like, as a composer, as a producer, is to make your job as a director easier. And the less you have to think about it, because I'm actually, you take care of your business, take care of the creative side, take care of the business side, and deliver everything on time, and communicate with everybody, and always answer emails quickly. That would be my biggest advice, because I think a lot of the people who are like myself, I think there's a lot of talented people. There's a lot of talented artists out there, but you really have to I think that's the one thing you have to understand, that your creativity and your creative process has to be your own. Don't put it on other people.
Good
Don't
advice.
tell them you're perplexed about how I couldn't come up with anything, or I wasn't feeling it yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, the creative juices just didn't hit me. Nobody wants to hear that.
I do that in writing all the time. Oh, couldn't come up with anything. Nothing inspired me. Sometimes you have to write through the problems and then come back.
Yeah. Just also too, of course, is work on your craft. And always work on your craft. And always be working on your craft. That's the other thing that I would also say too to music composers. And don't be married to everything that you create. Like, not every note that comes out of your head is your baby.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because they're not all good ones.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could put together something and think that this is the best thing ever. And then you sit down, you meet with the director and producer, and they listen to it and they go, "That's not what we're looking for here," And then what you have to do is, they want your opinion. It's not like you can't give your opinion, but if they're just like, "No, that's not where we want to go," then you just have to go, "Okay," and move on and let go of it and come up with something else.
Well, before we end, we want to talk to you a little bit about your acting ability. We talked in the opening about the fact that you did have a role in a reprised, a TV show that's now reprised, but you got involved with Michael Pfeiffer's films. He put you in the upcoming movie Party Mom. I see the character's name is Officer Tylan, which is also the name of your son.
Yeah.
So what's it like for you to be in front of the camera?
Well, I've always enjoyed performing. I really have always loved performing. So it's not, but this particular one, which we just got picture lock on Party Mom. So he just sent out the email, invite for the spotting session. And so we're doing that. We're going to be spotting that one this week. And,
did he send you the email that says, "Congratulations, you haven't been cut from the film"?
Yeah, exactly. But it is strange when you're scoring a movie that you're actually in, too.
Yeah.
That's because I didn't forget, but it still kind of, I was like, oh, wow, that's right. Like, those are really close-up shots.
That's funny.
I can see just too much.
Yeah. Do I really look like that?
HD is not always our friend.
That's funny.
It was really fun, though. It was a lot of fun. It was, again, I told you before, I'd done some acting before, previously.
Yep.
So it wasn't, I knew the process, but it's still, this role that he gave me was a little bit bigger role than I thought. It's not one of the main roles in the movie, but it's not just like a cop walking in and just, and handing off a cup of coffee to somebody and saying, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow," which is kind of what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I'm actually in a couple scenes with Krista Allen, and she's, anyhow, I don't know if I can give away what the story's about.
Now,
but,
he did a little bit, but we don't want you to do that. It's going to be exciting to see you in the movie, though.
Oh, thanks.
So back in 2002, though, you were in an episode of Will and Grace, which that's the reboot that I'm talking about that just came back to TV. So, like, the character's name was Colin, so that's kind of a good thing that you're not just guy number 2, right? Yeah. So how did that role come about? Tell us a little bit about your experience on Will and Grace back in the early 2000s.
Well, that one came about really from that one came about from an agent that I had just signed with, and this agent actually was the person who sent me out to audition for Gene and Tony's musical for Second Wind.
Okay.
And after I had booked Second Wind, the way that it works with a lot of agents, with anybody, is that once if you're booking things, then they start going, oh, they're working, so they start sending you out more, and they start sending out more things. And after the Second Wind booking, then they sent me out on oh my gosh, what's the big musical? Oh my gosh, I just blanked on the name of it. But it's a huge musical. It was a huge like pop rock musical a few years ago. I'll think of the name of it in a little bit. But it was big enough that everybody at the time knew the music. I mean, it was like the most popular musical at that time. And at that time, I just wasn't really familiar with musicals. I didn't know what it was really.
Sure.
And but I went on these audition anyway, and like I almost booked it. I almost got it. Like they called me back like 6-7 times for it, and it was a Broadway musical.
Mm-hmm.
Again, me like not knowing, when you don't know, you're just kind of in the dark about it. And I brought it back, and Heidi was like, do you have any idea what musical this is? She's like, this is like one of the biggest musicals ever.
Are we talking about Moulin Rouge?
No, it wasn't
or Chicago?
Moulin Rouge. Nope, not that one.
Not Phantom, right?
Nope, not Phantom.
Okay.
No, it was more urban than that. Not urban, but more. Oh my God.
More like Kinky Boots?
Which one?
More like
Kinky Boots? I guess it would be more like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody listening is screaming names that we can't respond to.
This is what it is, you idiots. Okay, so
Yeah.
what's coming up next for you?
The next thing is Party Mom.
Okay.
That's the next one that I'm scoring, and then there's one. Then Deadly Lessons is the next one after that. That's the one that Michael just got done shooting, and so they're editing that one. He's editing that one now, and then he's scheduled to shoot another one in December. So we have three lined up.
So going back just real quick before we finish about celebrities and encounters with fans and that kind of thing, you have been around the industry for a very long time. So do you get starstruck, or was there a time where you ever were starstruck at somebody?
I've never really been a person who got starstruck. It's odd. I'm like not like like oh my gosh, that's that person.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I did discover that I do get more starstruck over sports people than I do.
Okay.
than I do over actors. Like if I see, I remember the first time I saw Magic Johnson.
Oh,
and
sure.
actually my partner, Tommy Redder, who's in New York right now, Tommy, who was in Billy Elliot, when he and I we were on Ventura Boulevard at, it was whatever the juice place is at the time. It might have been a Jamba Juice.
Uh-huh.
And we're standing in line, and then you can kind of feel like the windows in Jamba Juice go all the way to the ceiling, and it was sunny, and it's California, so it's always sunny. And
rub
and
that in,
can,
thanks.
Like when we're sitting, yeah, right. Yeah, it's going to be 91 degrees here this week, right?
Please stop talking. It snowed on Sunday.
But so anyway, we were standing there talking, and then I could it felt like sort of like when it gets cloudy,
mm-hmm.
and the light kind of goes away because the cloud, like a small cloud moves over, and Tommy goes, dude, look, you're not gonna believe who's standing behind us. He goes, look, it's him, it's Magic.
It's him.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I just kind of just briefly look around, and it's like, it's Magic Johnson standing right behind us in line at Jamba Juice, or whatever that juice place was.
So did you buy him his juice? Don't tell me you didn't.
Well,
come on.
No, we didn't stalk him or anything.
I was gonna say free juice might have meant some courtside seats.
Yeah.
You'll never know now, though.
That's right. Missed the opportunity.
So we talked at the top of the show, Brandon. Today is Black Friday. So we were wondering, are you going to go out and do any shopping today, or do you have anything on the list of places you're going to try and get to?
I just bought some new equipment for the studio, and we spent some money on the house this year. So I don't know what big purchases that I'm going to do, but you know what? I really always wanted to get is I always wanted to get a drone, just for fun.
Yeah.
A little yeah. I was looking at one of those. I thought that might be kind of fun just to get to play around with at the house.
All right, Brandon, last question for you. You have lived on the East Coast and the West Coast and everywhere in between. So here, Christmas is cold, miserable, and snowy. In L.A., you're bragging about 91 degrees. So which Christmas do you prefer?
That's a tough question. Which one do I prefer? Because I really like both of them. And because we're so spoiled here, I get the best of both worlds. Because we get, most of the time, during Christmas and Thanksgiving, we'll go home to Idaho and we'll spend Christmas there, which I love. I love going to Idaho and spending Christmas there. And, of course, it's full of snow and it's cold and all the good stuff that we like from Christmas. But of course, we leave and we come back, so we don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis like everybody else does. And you're also, I think, in a bigger city than Soda Springs, Idaho, where we go to. So there, it's not as big a deal because there's only there are only like 3,000 people there in the town. So
Okay.
it's not like you have to deal with a lot of traffic or wow, which one do I like more? But then I do love the fact that, that I can go out and I can go ride my bike and I can go do a 20-mile ride.
Work off that Christmas dinner.
Yeah, right.
I get it. Look, I get it. I actually would have to, as much as I despise the Wisconsin winter, just the holiday season. I mean, I've been driving around for 2 weeks now listening to Christmas music, and with it being cold and stuff out, it's like, it's putting me in the mood already. I'm already happy.
Yeah, I'm ready for Christmas, but no.
Yeah, you're right. That is the thing too. It is harder to get into. We were just listening to Christmas music. My daughter and I. She's had rehearsals the last few days, and I've been driving her to rehearsal for dance. And we've been listening to Christmas music, and I'm like, oh, I finally feel like I'm in the mood because the temperature for us dropped a little bit here.
Oh, please. No, not in the 90s.
Yeah, it went into the 60s,
Oh, my gosh. That's a heat wave here, man.
Yeah.
So there's one more question we do have to ask you. Where can we find you online?
They can go to BrandonJarrettMusic.com, or they can go to MohoProductions.com.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Either one.
So if you are looking to make a song, get help writing a song, producing a song, this is the guy. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Call Brandon Jarrett. He's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking your time today to talk to us. Now, we really appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you guys so much, too. I really appreciate it.
Our thanks to Brandon Jarrett for being our guest this week.
And he just called us to tell us
Rent. The musical was Rent.
Like, how could we not get that? We were like doing all these obscure names, and it was Rent the whole time. So that was what the musical was. In case you were screaming that at us, you were right. You can find us on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Fancounters. And there, not only can you like our page and get all of our updates about who our future guests are, you can still message us for the end of the year, New Year's Eve Celebrity Encounter show, where we're going to read your celebrity encounters. All you have to do is send them to
hello@fancounters.com.
And until next week, when we have another great guest, we are saying Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Black Friday, and stay warm.
We'll see you later. Bye.